listening to the Sit Down Standout Show, the podcast where people with all abilities and challenges can stand out from the rest, even if they've got to sit down to do it. I'm Ben Dykstra, the Rolling Dragon, and it's time for this show to take flight. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to the Sit Down Standout Show, the podcast where people with all abilities and challenges get a chance to stand out from the rest, even if they've got to sit down to do it. I'm Ben Dykstra, the Rolling Dragon, and I've got a very special guest with me, an award-winning wildlife photographer, and just recently, he is now an author of The World with Jason. And please, ladies and gentlemen, welcome Jason George. Jason, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I am doing awesome, my man. It is good to have you on with us.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's pretty cool to get to share and talk about my struggle in my life and the joys and all of that makes me who I am. So thanks for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome. It's a pleasure to have you. So can you kind of start from the beginning and discuss, first of all, how did wildlife, the love of nature and wildlife, enter into your life, and what your life was like growing up with dyslexia, or as what was affectionately known prior to the 1960s as word blindness?
Well, those are two sort of totally, I guess I can start with, when I was born, I came out actually 5 weeks early, weighing 9'6", and I didn't actually say my first word until I was 4 years old. So I actually struggled with communication my whole life. My mom got a speech therapist for me, and luckily she supported me and saw that I wasn't, for lack of a better term, stupid, I guess is what a lot of people might have called it back in the day. But she saw that I was working hard and believed in me, and it was awesome. And because of that, I was able to probably push and get where I am today because of that belief that she had in me. But I struggled as a kid. I always got in trouble at school for maybe not listening or not focusing, because I'm also like ADD. And some days were definitely tougher than others. And I'd be looking or sitting in class, and I'd be trying to take notes, and all of a sudden like the teacher would say something and I'm trying to write it down, and I'm writing the word "the." And I'm struggling writing "the," and they're two sentences ahead of me, and I'm like, well, how do I catch up? And then I'd just get frustrated and mad, and then I'd probably act out or do something silly. And so school was really tough for me. Some teachers saw that I was working hard. Other teachers probably thought I was just being silly. And it was a struggle. I was a 50, 60 student my whole life. I remember getting a 70 or an 80 in gym. And that was probably my only good grade. And other than every year, that was my only good grade. And then we went from there, and I went to university. And at university, I ended up starting to figure out how to actually work and study and learn for myself. So for me, when I was studying, I went and talked to the school or the university student there for studies, and they actually, or student services, and they got me someone who wrote my notes for me. So I could just go to class, sit there and listen. And then someone would give me notes from class, and I could just write down the key word or a sentence that I thought was important. And that's when I noticed my marks starting to go up, and I actually started getting 80%. So my marks went up 15% when most people were putting on a Froshman 15, which is normally referred to as weight on your belly. I put a Froshman 15 on my actual marks, which was pretty cool. And so I started to learn how to deal with it for me. And I actually think that being dyslexic actually helps me see wildlife better. And I know that doesn't really make sense to people. But when I'm reading, I read a pattern. So I'm seeing it sort of as a musical thing. And it's ba-da-da-da-da-da, but something's out of whack, and then I go back. So then I look at it and I'm like, oh wait, that word was weird. It's sort of, which I know maybe doesn't make sense, but so when I'm looking at the nature or the forest, I'm like, oh, this is what it should look like, and I'm reading this pattern. And then something looks weird, and I look back at it, and I think that's what also actually helps me see more animals. And I don't know if it's actually true, but I had that theory one day, and like I see more animals than a lot of people, so I'm gonna go with it.
Right. Wildlife is kind of a, all right, let me take a break from reading for a minute. Let me look at this. Let me center myself so I can go back and try to read this properly.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that I think a lot of people are just rushing through life, and like because I sit there and take that extra time, it actually is very helpful for me.
Right. I needed note takers too when I was in school, but that was more for a speed thing. Because with my cerebral palsy, my hands don't work as well as other people. So it's like I could write as slow as a tortoise can walk. So
Yeah, well, it happens being a slow writer. I'm not the quickest writer either, so I understand that.
all right. So now that we've discussed dealing with dyslexia, how did wildlife photography enter your life? Because it's one thing to see, oh, there's a goose in the backyard or there's a turkey, but it's a totally different thing to want to travel the world to take pictures of wildlife in their natural habitat. And you've traveled quite extensively.
I have actually. I've been pretty fortunate. I always believe. I don't believe that tomorrow's promised, so I think that we should always make the most of every opportunity. And so if I get a cool opportunity or whatever, I'm like, oh, I want to go and do it or take that chance. And that's sort of what I've done. And to be honest, I see, and because of that, it's like, oh, someone's like, oh, well, there's this cool animal over here. And I'm like, well, I want to see that. Well, I also want to see the animal that might not exist anymore. Like I recently got back from Jamaica where I was hanging out with baby sea turtles, and I saw them crawl out of like critically endangered hawkbill sea turtles crawl out of the sand and across the sand and then into the water, and I got to swim with them and take a video of them going out into the horizon, and like people are like, that's so cool, and I'm like, I agree, like that's why I did it. And I think it's something that a lot of people are like, oh, these things are so cool, but they don't actually want to try it or aren't willing to put themselves in that position. And I don't know, it's just kind of cool to get this. Like I've seen animals that no longer exist. Like
That is, yeah, that is an incredible thing, because I remember not long ago there was that that last white rhino that passed away in the zoo, and I was like, my goodness, if only people took more time to like look at all these animals. And I think it's the extra effort that freaks people out of like, oh, I got to get on a plane, I got to get this equipment, travel all the way over there, pay so much money. That's probably what freaks people out about going over there. But I've held wild animals too, so I get where you're coming from.
yeah, like and honestly, like if again, like a lot of people will go on a vacation or like it's like, hey, like I want to go to the like if we're going to the Caribbean, for example, like I'm going to go to the Caribbean. It's like, and they just stay on the resort. It's like there's so much outside of the resort. If you actually just take even a day or 2 days to just explore in your week, you can slowly start to see so much, or jump into the water and see what's underneath the sea. Like there's so much amazing stuff out there in nature that I think that people need to enjoy and appreciate a little bit more.
Right. One of my friends who I was on a different podcast, he says, so many people spend thousands of dollars to travel the world to take a nap.
Totally. Or like there's like people are like sleeping in until 2 in the afternoon. And I'm not saying that you can't do that on one day and like relax and enjoy yourself, but like while you're in some of these cool countries, like take that opportunity to enjoy and get around and see stuff. And that's what I do. I will take a couple days to do nothing, but like I'm not doing nothing for the whole day. Like I'm trying to have some fun and be silly and just experience life to the fullest, because tomorrow it might be gone. Like I might not wake up tomorrow.
Right.
And I want to, right? Like I want to see and have all these cool stories and be able to share like, man, I swam with penguins in the Galapagos Islands. Like I was in the Amazon jungle fishing for piranhas. Like there's some cool cool stories that I can share depending on what the environment is. And like I've been to everywhere except I've been on every continent except for Antarctica.
There's not going to be much of Antarctica left at this rate, but I see what you're saying about seizing the moment, carpe diem, like seize the day, you know. But
always seize the day, man.
now you've traveled all over the country of Canada, and you actually only live like 4 hours away from me in Wasaga Beach. But
where are you actually?
I'm in Halliburton.
Okay, cool. Yeah. I love coming. I know it's not like actually where you are, but I love going to like Algonquin Park. Like I had a gallery in the park actually for 6 months.
You recently became an author writing The World According to Jason George, a book focused on Canada's wildlife, and it was designed for individuals with dyslexia so they could learn to improve their reading skills. What made you decide to write that book, and can you kind of explain the journey that you went on for that?
Well, I just tried to write the book in a way that I thought was fun, and I teamed up with this awesome author or illustrator named Jimmy, and he drew some pictures to go along with the stories, and I wanted to try to keep people engaged, but make it so that it wasn't too intense. So we used big font and not too many words per page. But I know that sometimes I get distracted when I'm reading. So one of the things I thought would be cool is if we did like a Where's Waldo thing. So a Where's Waldo thing means that I have some items that are hidden in every picture and stuff Jimmy has an item hidden in every one of his drawings. And it's just sort of has you not really focused on the stuff, but you can sort of like tune in, and because sometimes you don't always want to read. I get that. So you can just look at it and then you see illustrations and also pictures that I took. And then we share some little bits of stories and facts about the animals as we go through. So like for Canada, we talk about frogs, squirrels, deer, foxes, beavers, caribou, otters, moose, owls, whales, bears, a whole bunch. We picked 15 of my favorite animals, or 15 of the animals that I have some cool pictures of. And we just tried to keep paragraphs short, simple, and have lots of pictures so that you can look and sort of, if you get lost, just sort of get caught up in that picture and just sort of enjoy it. And I also like the fact that like you don't have to read the whole book. Like it's not like from cover to cover, like one page doesn't lead to the other. Like you could just skip to the snowy owl page and read the snowy owl page. You don't have to know what happened on the bear page to know what happened on the snowy owl page. So it being separated, I think, is a pretty cool thing so that you're not overwhelmed. Because I know when I was a kid, like I didn't read a whole book. Like I'd read like a page or two and then I'm like, okay, cool, I'm done. And then I wanted to flip through. So we tried to keep it engaging. You can flip through and read when you want. We even hid some numeracy things in there so that you can learn about numbers and money when we were able to, just to try to make this book engaging and educational, not only for the child who's reading it on their own, but maybe the parent who's reading it to them. We wanted to make it fun for everybody. And I was a teacher for 10 years, so I have applied everything I learned from teaching into this book so that it could potentially be an engaging book for all that read, or at least try to read. And again, if you aren't able to read, you can enjoy the pictures. And I'm going to take you all across Canada. We're working right now on book 2, which is going to Africa, and also book 3, which is going to Jamaica.
Hey, my fellow standouts, it's the Rolling Dragon, Ben and Dykstra, here to ask you a couple of questions as we've reached the halfway point in our program. Has life thrown you a curveball? Have you lived with what many people would consider unfortunate circumstances or unique challenges? How have you turned them around into something positive for yourself and for others? Is it your time to stand out from the rest? Well then, register as a guest at www.rollingdragonmedia.com and get ready to stand out from the rest. And now, for the rest of our story. That is very cool. And I like how, like you said, keeping it separate, giving your readers multiple angles to view the book, like because they can follow the images on a visual journey if they need a break from trying to read, because I can understand that having trouble pronunciating words, trying to follow along, trying to sound things out can be totally exhausting, which takes me back to dyslexia. What has been the hardest part of dealing with dyslexia from when you started up to this point?
The hard, the hardest thing that I've had to deal with, probably trying to collect my thoughts and say what I want to say in words, and then also trying to like write them down. It's I have lots of thoughts going on in here, and I can sometimes verbalize them. Although speaking for me is also really tough because I didn't say my first word till I was 4. But then trying to not only do that, but also then trying to write them, like that is really tough for me. Sometimes I just let it out, and then it's like, okay, let's now figure out what I actually wanted and pick the pieces that I have. Other times it's just like, it just gets stuck in my mind and I can't get certain words and thoughts out. And I would say that would be the toughest struggle for me.
Okay, so trying to make sure that when you're talking, when you're writing, all of those thoughts in your brain can make
Yes.
sense to everyone else
Yeah.
around you.
Because like what I'm trying to
And
say, you might not understand because I'm reading or figuring something out, and then I get distracted, and it's like, did I continue the thought, or did I say that word, and did I use the right word? And then, like, if I was to try to spell something, it would suck. Like, and reading is actually something that's kind of tough for me. Like, I don't read books on the regular. Like, I love flipping through like a magazine or like a pamphlet. Like, I'll read when I have to read. As a teacher, I had to read, so I did read when I was forced to. But I try to avoid reading when I can, because that's also really tough. So when someone's talking to me and I'm trying to read, is also maybe one of the tougher things also for me.
okay. So, one thing that I would definitely like to inform the listeners of, whether you have a young child with dyslexia or you're just not sure if someone you know has dyslexia, don't be afraid to take them to the doctor and don't be afraid to ask multiple questions, because dyslexia is often associated with ADHD, or attention hyper deficit disorder. And what piece of advice would you give to someone who is either newly diagnosed with dyslexia or someone who is concerned that they might have a loved one with dyslexia?
Honestly, yeah, that's my advice would be just to give it time. And like, we all struggle with different things, and we all sometimes take a little bit of extra time, a little bit of extra comfort, some people refer to it, right? Not everybody can draw a pretty picture, right? That's okay. So not everyone can read the same way. So just give people time and just trust yourself. And if you work at it, it can become possible. Like, my whole life, I wanted to be a teacher. I became a teacher. While I was a teacher, I had this dream of being a wildlife photographer. Well, I now am a wildlife photographer, and I have a book. I've been published in Reader's Digest. And there's some cool things that are about to happen in the next year or two, hopefully, or continue to happen, I should say. So if you believe in yourself or you believe in that person, like, we're all capable of doing so many amazing and great things, that we just need to believe and trust in ourselves. And yeah, you'll be able to accomplish many great things if you do that.
Right. Remembering to put the work in and exercising patience. But going back to all the work that you've done, being a teacher of what subject? I didn't I didn't see what you
Oh,
taught as a
I know.
teacher.
Okay, so I was a high school teacher for business, health, gym, geography, um,
Okay.
and business.
Okay, so as a teacher, as an author, as a wildlife photographer, you have done a crazy amount of things while still overcoming having dyslexia. And it can be exhausting, no matter how good the day is going. But how do you practice self care when you need to take time away from all that hectic stuff? Because to me, it would feel like, okay, I'm working, but I'm not working as I'm out in the bush photographing this beautiful animal at the same time.
um, that's an awesome question. So I don't consider going into the bush to actually be work. Honestly, like if on a bad day, like going into the bush and not seeing a moose, like is that really a bad day? Like, but if we're gonna be in the if I'm when I'm in the bush, like it's awesome, and like in the actual moment where I'm sitting there taking pictures of the animals, it's one of those things where I'll actually just put my camera down and just enjoy the moment. Like I'm not taking a picture often to be like, oh man, this picture is gonna make me money. I'm there being like, yo, this is a cool moment. Like I don't I don't even know if I'm gonna sell any of my pictures or videos that I'm taking. I'm just making them. So I'm I'm just out there enjoying the moment. It's like, man, this wolf that just walked past me, this not jaguar, um this lion, this alligator, this turtle, any of those animals walk past me, like that's a great day. And like if I can have a camera with me, it's awesome. If I get a cool picture, that's even better. But if I'm able to share the story or that experience and maybe make someone enjoy nature more, like that's sort of like my goal. And that brings me to my mental health. Like when I'm having a bad day, I go out and it makes my day better. When I'm having a good day, I go outside and enjoy nature and it makes my good day great. Like it always makes my day better no matter where I am.
Oh, I totally get it because I was influenced to work with my voice for a living by David Attenborough and his nature
Right?
documentaries. So I
Like
totally get it.
that's like on my YouTube channel, like I make videos similar to what he's doing, and I think it's pretty cool, or at least I think they're cool. And every once in a while, someone says, "Yo, you got that David Attenborough, Morgan Freeman style thing going on." I'm like, "Yes, that's what I want. Like that's cool. Like it's like I always enjoyed that as a kid." So
Right. I'll do that too for you if you ever want to just hit me up and we can do some videos together on that.
Well, man, I don't know how we could. We should. I don't know how you do that over. Like we might have to meet up in person. I could do some clips or
Well,
something. You could
well,
send me some.
well, I do all the video or the audio editing for this myself, so I can do stuff like
Okay.
that.
Well, you know what? We'll figure something out. What's your favorite animal?
I honestly, like, I was one of those kids where it was like I didn't want to be an occupation. I wanted to be an animal. I was like, I want to be an owl.
And okay, so I know that our. I'm going to show you something in the video then, because I think you'll. Yeah, this is a taxidermied snowy owl.
Oh yeah, I had actually one of my educational assistants in school had it because her grandfather shot one when she was a little girl.
Oh,
I guess it was legal back then.
yeah. So yeah. So this one got hit by a car like 3-4 years ago, and then I was given it like so I can take it to presentations when I'm doing them, which is pretty cool. It's sad that it got hit, but if you
Yeah.
get the permits and stuff, you can get them taxidermy.
So back onto the questions because I know we're having fun here, but if you had, because you've photographed and seen animals from all over the world, if you could choose one animal to take home and keep as a pet, which one would it be?
An animal that I've seen that I could take home as a pet.
Yes.
That is, you know what? I've never been asked that question. That's an awesome question. Um, if it's just a pet and it's not going to eat me, I might say a leopard or a lion or a cheetah. Those are sort of one of the ones I think. If it might eat me, because I don't want it to eat me, I'm going to say a penguin. I think those are cool. But to be honest, I'm actually terrified of animals.
Fair enough. I love animals, but I have trouble establishing emotional connections with them too. But if I was to take one animal, I think it would have to be that great horned owl that you have in your photo shot.
Oh, that's a Eurasian eagle owl.
Oh, I thought it was a great horn.
They look exactly the same, except for their eyes are different. One has an orange eye, one has a yellow eye.
Okay, so lastly, as we wind down, Jason, you mentioned that you have several new books coming in the new year of going to Africa, going to Jamaica. What other projects do you have going on, and where can people find your work?
I'm actually also working on a book with this lady named Candace McLeod on dyslexia and like explaining some of our difficulties. But all of this stuff that we're talking about, my books, my pictures, they'll be able to be found on my website, my Instagram, my YouTube channel, which is all Jason George Photography. My website's jasongeorgephotography.com. If you're looking for me on Google, just make sure you find the one in Wasaga Beach, because there is another Jason George that does photography. Kind of funny when we get each other's emails once in a while.
Yeah, I also found a bar and grill with your name on it somewhere.
That's downtown Toronto. It's a great bar. I tell people often that it's named after me.
Well, Jason, it has been awesome to talk to you. It has been awesome to share your story. Do you have any final thoughts before we wrap this up?
Stay safe, have fun, and keep enjoying the wildlife. Let's get out and enjoy the outdoors before they're gone, because the world and Mother Nature is a beautiful place.
Amen to that. And from all of us here at the Sit Down Standout Show, I'm Ben Dykstra, the Rolling Dragon. He is Jason George, and we shall see you next time.